What I want to start with is the very word evaluations. The word evaluation comes from, of course, Latin and French etymology, and it has the meaning behind the word value. It's a valor. You're adding valor, courage, and value to whatever is being given to you. Actually, my epiphany came just 2 days ago when I was in one of those three clubs I talked to you about. And I gave this evaluation. And the person whom I evaluated, he comes to me after the meeting and tells me something that was a profound epiphany, moment of epiphany for me. He said, Rex, the way you give evaluations, they're not evaluations. What you are actually doing is you are embellishing on my speech. Until then, I never even saw it that way. He said, you are embellishing on my speech. I have seen you do this week after week. Not only are you pointing out the positives, but you are touching on things where I could have done better. Well, that is the thing that opened my own eyes. Without understanding that part, I was doing that. So evaluations, adding value, bringing out the fervor and the value and the value of the person in whatever he or she was doing. If you had attended the conference, the spring conference, you would have seen Darren Lacroix, the former public speaking champion, world champion. What he did was he played a 55-second performance of his speech that he originally gave in the early 90s. It was an attempt for stand-up comedy, and he was just very awkward, very awkward. Those 55 seconds was, he was just literally reading from it and moving here. It was an awkward display of what he was then. And he proved a point that had he been evaluated very critically, or even being dismissed of no consequence, we would not have the Darren Lacroix, the champion, the world champion of public speaking. Always keep that in mind when we do evaluations. So number one, evaluations is when the evaluator speaks and the speaker listens. It's just the tables are turned around. And in order to do effective evaluations, look at all aspects of the speech. Remember, in Toastmasters, this is sometimes for new members, this comes as an absolute shock. We do not evaluate on the content. We do not. Toastmasters does not. But however, we evaluate on the delivery techniques because it's the two sides of the coin. Sure, Nikola Tesla had everything. He was a smart geek. And personally, I am a fan of Nikola Tesla. He had the merits. That's the one side of the coin. But my dear friends, perception is often the forgotten half of change. Had he been more socially accepted, he would have known how to work through that period, the very shocking period of what is called as the battle of currents, with Thomas Edison on the direct current and Nikola Tesla and Westinghouse, George Westinghouse on the alternating current. And that period was a turbulent period, and it was called as the battle of currents. And of course, Nikola Tesla prevailed and won, not primarily because of Nikola Tesla, but also because of George Westinghouse. Why? Because he covered that other part. And so it is with evaluations. It is not the content, it's the delivery. How do you do the eye contact? How are you smiling? How are you maintaining an eye contact? How are you able to improvise on the spot? And most importantly, what about the title of the speech? Here is a case in point. I do evaluations not just for adults. That is the easiest part. The most difficult part of my evaluations career is evaluating the kids. in the youth Toastmasters. Because remember, they are budding geniuses. Anything you say to them, you need to be extra cautious because you can nix them at their birth. So that added responsibility always puts enough pressure on me. But guess what? Every time I do that, these children will be waiting. When is Rex Uncle coming to do the evaluations? And what I do to them is exactly what I do here. Start with the positives. When we do start with the positives, the people are already conditioned to your message. In other words, the soil is made fertile for the next level of pruning and other things that you're about to bring, which is the constructive criticism or opportunities for growth. But when we are not doing that and starting with, oh, this was not right and that's not right, and this rubric was not followed and that rubric was not followed, even whatever you're trying to accomplish there falls flat. And there's a reason why I'm wearing this t-shirt. Number one, it came on mail yesterday. Number two, I did not know that I'd be speaking after a speech on Nikola Tesla. Number three, though, it proves a very overarching, larger point. In mathematics, we all would have graduated from mathematics. You belong to either two camps. One, either you love mathematics or you hate mathematics. There's no middle ground in between. To give you an idea, if you're only looking at the evaluations as a bunch of mathematical equations, x squared plus y squared equal to 9, y equal to 1 by x, and you missed the other part, you would have missed this. In other words, when you look at the rubrics, the Toastmasters assignment, yes, it does tell you, look for eye contact, look for whether he or she is noting or using notes, whether he or she is smiling, or whether he or she is inspiring, motivating, yada, yada, yada. The rubrics, the dogmas. Yes, those are the equations. But those are the functions that give you a curve that looks like an L, a curve that looks like an O, a curve that looks like a V, a curve that looks like a parabola E. It is up to us to get creative to get that love part amid that equations. So, we had 3 speakers. One speaker, she's talking about her own background and childhood. As difficult as it was, you looked at her confidence. And she addressed her vulnerability. Heads on. Talk about that. Another person comes and cracks humor at jet speed. Recognize that. The third person comes and starts with a strong dichotomy and a paradox, starting with the car Tesla that you all are aware of, and suddenly correlates that to the actual scientist, Nikola Tesla, of the 19th century. Recognize that. And sure enough, in that youth Toastmasters, the 7th grade girl taught me this. She spoke about a speech that was titled, A Night with a Dracula. I repeat, A Night with a Dracula. What do you think you would have thought about what she's going to speak about? Any guesses?
Vampires?
That's what we all would think, right? When she started speaking, she spoke about a sleepless night because of a mosquito. Look at the creative genius of how the title is. The title should always be enigmatic and leave you in enigma. Talk about that. So evaluations are not just about, yeah, you maintained eye contact, you smiled, you did this, you did not use notes, but get creative. Get creative not on the content itself, but on the delivery style. Even the most challenging of all speeches, there would be something that is very positive. Always start with that. Because when there are great evaluations, you will attract more great speeches. Because that's when people get motivated to step up to give speeches. And great speeches and great evaluations together constitute a formidable combination that makes clubs successful. So in order for clubs to be successful, we do not need nabobs or the nawabs, but we need people who can be empathetic, can relate to each other, and start on the positives and give constructive feedback as to how they can embellish their speeches.